We are live on Facebook. We are recording. Hey, Ted, it's Friday night. How's it going?
Friday night. It's time to talk triathlon, evidence-based triathlon tonight. Yeah, it's going good. It's starting to get a little cold in the mornings out there.
Yeah, it is. I love this time of year though, where it is cool in the morning, warms up nicely,
Yep.
and then cools off again in the evening. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I was
we have
able to.
we're so lucky that we're able to train outdoors for the majority part of
Yeah.
the year. But then there's times where we definitely don't want to be outside.
Yeah. It was nice today. I was able to sneak in a little bike ride this morning, and then I got at lunchtime did a quick little hit out on the run. So it was really nice today. But yeah, let's talk today about indoor bike training in particular. Because obviously the time is changing. We're lucky. It's December and we're starting to think about this. I have friends in Canada. I'm sure you have friends other places. They've been indoor for 2 months already, thinking about this. And what I really wanted to talk about, obviously, was the setups, the options that people have, but then maybe reasons to train indoor year round, and
Yep.
to add indoor training. Some of the things that we're seeing as far as benefits to indoor training that we don't get outside, or it potentially is more difficult to get outside. So
Oh,
John,
that's great.
I know you've been training indoor a long time. Like I've had an indoor training for a long time. Even back to the days of rollers.
Yeah, well, that's where I was going to mention that is back in the 80s, I was living in the Northeast, and back then the real only way to train indoors on the bike was to get a set of rollers or to get on some type of stationary bike that's not your bike. But
Yeah.
to use your bike in the training really was a set of rollers. And it's always funny because I remember training in the back east and looking at results in the magazines, because back then we just had magazines. The results would come out and I was like, how are these people going so fast already? Well, it's because they were mostly living in the Southwest, and they were able to train outdoors, whereas back up in the Northeast we're indoors. And I love rollers, and I still like to jump on my rollers, but it's a little different than getting a little resistance. But the times have changed. Now it's the indoor training is so much more sophisticated, and I think people, even in the Southwest, even though you can ride outside, there's advantages to doing some indoor training.
Yeah, for sure. Before the advent of smart trainers and Zwift and things like that, it was hard for me mentally to ride indoors. It's still I don't enjoy it as much as riding outdoors, but now I'm being entertained and I'm playing a game, and it's definitely easier for me to train indoors. And I think the mental side of things is part of the battle, right? Like if I was to say, hey, let's go for a 4-hour ride indoors, that takes me like almost planning all week. That okay, I gotta be mentally strong to do that. Outdoors, I can go for a 4-hour ride and just be out there doing my thing. It's definitely a lot easier. I don't know if you feel kind of the same way.
No, totally. And I think what really changed for indoor training is the smart trainer.
Yeah.
And so maybe we need to even start with describing what a smart trainer is. I think most people will know at this stage, but 5 years ago, I don't think a lot of people would be able to distinguish or be able to describe what a smart trainer was or is. And but nowadays a little bit more. So smart trainer, what's a smart trainer? If I go shopping for one, what am I looking for?
Well, they're what you're really looking for is something that can be controlled by a computer or by a phone, and the resistance can be controlled, and then ultimately the power that you produce can be measured. So it's kind of a combination of the old school hygrometer, where we can control power, but control power, but also find out or realize how much we're actually doing, how much work we're actually doing, and they can simulate uphill, downhill. You can simulate, depending on the software, drafting. So that ultimately that's the basic of it. And really, there's two main types. You've got a wheel-on smart trainer. So that where it's kind of like a roller where your back wheel sits on a roller, and however much pressure the drum on your wheel is will tell you, it will give you how much resistance and yeah, how much resistance. And then the one that's probably more popular or and definitely higher end is to take your back wheel off and do it's called direct drive, where you actually are connecting your chain directly up to the unit itself. The difference is in those mostly is cost, right? So a direct drive trainer, if you can, that's the other thing, if you can get one, because
Yeah.
they're kind of sold out all over the world right now, because of COVID and now the winter coming. But if you can get one, you're looking at minimum like $700 for like a high end one. You can go up to $1,500.
Yep.
And then a wheel on, you can start out, I think, about 400 and go to about $600 or $700 for them. So they're not cheap, but I look at it like, well, a power meter itself is not cheap, and you're getting a power meter kind of with this. Some of the people that I've worked with, they don't have a power meter on their bike, but they know their power because they have a power meter on their trainer.
Yeah. Right.
So that, in a nutshell, is what a smart trainer is.
Okay, so a smart trainer is any trainer that interacts with a computer program,
Yep.
where that controls the resistance on the trainer. I like that. All right, so now there's lots of user interfaces
Yes.
that you can use to control your trainer or to react to your trainer. And you talked about the gamification of indoor training.
Yeah.
So what are the most popular user interfaces?
Well, I think we need to break them down into ones that kind of what's the word, augmented reality, versus those that are purely number and text, right? So some people love the number text, right? So they get a number. It's that they have a training plan. They're going to do 4 by 2 minutes at this amount of watts, and it automatically switches for them, or they can switch on their own. So something like Trainer Road or Sufferfest, those would be probably the 2 most common that are like that. I know some people that have used those exclusively and very, very successfully. It keeps you engaged by, often, you'll get little messages, hey, push hard for the next 30 seconds, and then you're going to get a rest. So those are the kind of more numeric based. And then the augmented reality, there's lots of them out now, but the King Kong of the business is in Zwift. And then Sufferfest not Sufferfest, Ruby would probably be the second biggest one. And there are others. There's probably 10 different other ones, and I'm sure there's more being developed. Zwift will not tell us how many users they have, but some estimates are they might be getting close to 1 million users, which is pretty unbelievable to think about that at at $15 a month.
Yeah, I was just going to say, what's the cost right now? So
yeah, it's $15 a month, and I think Ruby is about the same, right? But those ones, the thing I like about those is it's augmented reality. Like, you're riding on a road, and there's other people around you. Those people could be anywhere in the world. You can draft. You get in behind somebody and you get a little bit of a draft. You can do group rides with your friends. With a triathlon club, we have done group rides before, where like 6 or 7 of us will meet up, and you can even set it up so you can't drop somebody. It's called creating a fence, where it basically pulls the people along. So there's a lot of options with those. And the one thing I like personally about Zwift is there's a lot of people on it, so there's always someone to ride with. Right? Some of the other platforms, from my understanding, oftentimes it's empty roads, right? Now that's fine, and some people love that. They like just being out on an empty road and seeing the scenery go by. I know that even, for example, like Peloton, they've got roads that you can ride on, and Peloton it's a little bit different, and because it's not your own bike on a trainer. It's well, it is your own bike, but it's just a little bit different. And then there's also racing. That I am in a racing league on Zwift, and my team is made up of 4 guys from Minnesota, me, and a guy from Canada.
Hmm.
And we meet up every Tuesday at 4:45, and we race. And we race against, against, we're in called the America's East group, and we there's 20 teams in our division, and it's kind of like a bowling league. We get
Mhm.
we get together and we race. And there's team time trials, and there's individual scratch races, and so it's very motivating. Um, some people don't like Zwift because there's a gamification side to it, where like the longer you're on it, you get better bikes, and like a little bit lighter bike, and then there's power ups like a video game. But you can do races where you don't have any of that stuff. But everyone has the same bike, and everyone has basically everything's the same. And so those are some of the options. But when we think about it, I mean, the big issue with this, the whole setup, John, is in my mind is it's expensive, right? This is not a cheap thing to do, right? If you look at the cost of the trainer, a smart trainer, let's say we go in the mid range, we're looking at $800, and then the software another $15 per month every month. It can be a barrier to people for sure. Um, I don't know what your thoughts are on the cost.
So yeah, yeah, I'm saving my money for my trailer restore, so that's
Yeah.
where all my money's going to. So I've got to be careful with additional monthly charges. And no, they do add up, because you do that, you do a Strava subscription, you do a Best Bike Split subscription, and before you know it, you've got $100 in different regular fees. So that is a part, and it is something that people need to think about. Now, when I use my indoor trainer right now, I'm just using the app on my phone.
Yep.
So I have a Wahoo Element. We don't have any conflict of interest with Wahoo, but I've got a Wahoo Element. I just use my Wahoo software, and I set it. In that case, I set it to what would be called erg mode, and I get a specific resistance that I ride at, and that's how I use it right now. I have done the Zwift. I haven't tried Ruby, but my wife uses Ruby, and there's lots of different ways to get the smart trainer to work. Some don't cost, but you get less frills with the no cost. So, um,
I'd like to correct you. You use a Wahoo kicker. Your element is your
oh
computer.
yeah, I'm sorry. I did say, yeah, you're right. The element's the computer. The kicker is the trainer.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. And John, when you have it set it up like that, now you don't have a monthly cost because you're doing it like that, but you don't have the entertainment either, right? Like you just got to be, but you can entertain yourself in other ways, right? Like I know, people watching like Game of Thrones, right?
Yep.
Like they just, hey, I'm gonna watch an episode every time I get on, and they're completely fine doing that, right? I do want to talk about erg mode, because I think that's a really important thing that we talk about. There is a ton of opinion, very little research, but there's a ton of opinion when you look at triathlon coaches and cycling coaches, whether erg mode is a good thing or not a good thing.
Mhm.
And honestly, I won't tell you if it's good or bad, because really I've listened to tons of podcasts on this. I've done a ton of reading, and there's as many people on each side,
Yep.
right? And there's very little research on what is better. Might be a good research project.
Yep.
But let's talk about what erg mode is. So do you want to take that one?
Sure. So erg just means work, and you set your workload. So you tell the interface what workload, what resistance you want the bike to experience, and then no matter how fast you try to pedal or how hard you try to push on the pedal, you're going to get the same resistance. So there's always a problem if you have to stop pedaling and you did not change your erg setting, because if your pedals stop and then you are going to start trying to pedal again, it's really hard to get it going. So you always have to pay attention to changing your setting.
I'm
But
going to add on Zwift, it actually recognizes if you stop,
uh,
and it cuts the power or cuts the erg down so you can build back up. So you don't have that feeling.
My interface is really dumb, so it doesn't do that at all.
Especially when it's sitting at like 300 watts. So once you do 300 watts and you've got no cadence going,
Yep.
it's tough. So that's actually really, let's talk about that, John, because I've actually had this happen with several of the people that I've worked with and talked to. They get really frustrated. They're like, okay, well, my trainer said to do 150 watts, and I just kept going faster and faster and faster, and I can never feel the resistance. Can you explain why that would happen?
Well, I'm not 100% sure, but when you set your resistance on most of these softwares, you set a power, and power is force times velocity. In the angular world, it'd be torque times angular velocity, but force times
you
velocity.
know exactly the answer, because that's the answer.
Oh, okay. All right, good. Then I'm on the right path. All right. So, and this is why it's hard to get the pedal going after you stop too.
Yeah.
Because power is the product of how hard you're pushing on the pedal and how fast the pedal's going. So if you're trying to hit the same power, 150 watts, you can do that with very little force, but you have to do it really fast. Or you can do it with lots of force. You just end up having to do it really slow.
Yeah.
And so what the folks that you're talking to probably are doing is they're just spinning faster,
yeah,
and therefore having less force, but still having the same amount of power.
Well, and the idea behind the erg mode is it's trying to match you, right? And you're trying to match it.
Yeah.
And so if you spin faster, exactly like you're saying, your torque is lower. So it feels like there's less resistance to you. And they're like, oh man, there's something wrong with this. I need to spin faster to get more, and spin faster to get more.
You can spin
and it's important for people to recognize that if you're in erg mode, you should try and just pedal at your normal cadence, and it will match for you. And especially if you work, for example, if you work with a coach that can set up these things. So for example, in Training Peaks, you can set up a workout where I could say, okay, we're going to do 200 watts for 10 minutes, then we'll take it easy for 2 minutes, go 200 watts, take it easy, 200 watts, and the trainer will automatically change.
Yep.
Right. And same in Zwift, you can set these things up. There's lots of workouts. There's thousands of different workouts now you can do in Zwift. And as long as you just try and keep your cadence the same, it'll work. But like you said, if you slow down, let's say you start going a cadence of like 30 strokes a minute, at 200 watts, 30 strokes or 30, a cadence of 30 is really, really muscularly difficult.
You got to push hard. And so, really what I'm guilty of not taking a full advantage of a smart trainer, because I'm just setting it to one resistance. It's smart in the sense that it adjusts how much resistance there is based upon how fast I'm pedaling. So you're spot on. Yeah. But I really like how you're talking about the advantage of a smart trainer is you can program it to do different things, or you can set up to just ride a course, on a Zwift or a Ruby, and then the computer adjusts the resistance as you go along.
But if for example, what you're trying to accomplish, let's say you're trying to do a zone 1 ride, right? And I say, okay, for my zone 1, I know that it's 180 watts. So I can say, I'm going to do 180 watts for 2 hours.
Yep.
I can just put it in there. I don't have to think about anything. I literally can just go, right? And that's a nice thing to have. Yep. If you want to just, not worry about anything else, just get into your zone, watch a movie, right? That is a nice feature. The other side of it is if you want to do, for example, let's say some sub-threshold work. So let's say we talked a lot about threshold a couple weeks ago. Let's say your lactate threshold is, or your FTP, I don't know, let's say it's 250 watts, and you want to do just below that. You want to do 95% of that, because that's where what you're trying to do for today. You could set that up to say, I'm going to do 2 times 20 minutes with a 10-minute break in between, and it's going to hold it, right? It's going to hold it, and it's going to be hard, right? But that's the prescription for today. And there's no cheating it, right? Like if that's the prescription, that's what you're going to do.
Yeah.
And there's something to be said for sticking to the prescription as well. And I think the smart trainer and the setups that we potentially have, that is a big benefit. The downside to that is, what do you do when you can't do it,
Hmm.
right? So when you're halfway through that second 20 minutes and you're all of a sudden you're pedaling squares, which is, a term I think we all know, and you can't complete the session, that, or you have to change your position so drastically and stand up, and you're not necessarily getting what you want potentially out of that session. So I think that that's important as well. And then obviously, this is just power, and we've talked before about power versus heart rate. Unless you know your power zones very, very well, it being stuck in erg mode also can be maybe not as beneficial as possible either.
Yeah. No, that's good. I like that. And yeah, and this is the beauty of an indoor trainer, is you can use it for lots of different things.
So
And
now let's say we want to do the same thing and we were not in erg mode.
hmm,
That's the cool thing about these,
yep.
is you can also turn off erg mode, and you can set your resistance just kind of as you go, and just pedal harder,
Hmm.
right? And you can change, for example, I can on mine, I can just change the gearing,
Yep.
like just change, just like normally change, flick my fingers, change the gearing, and I can do the exact same thing. I could say I'm going to do 20 minutes at 240 watts, and I can just look and I can match it onto the screen,
Yeah.
right? I personally, I prefer that on the harder sessions.
Hmm.
And then I understand that, my power is going to move maybe from 230 to 250, and it's going to be bouncing around a little bit. Um, but I personally prefer for me to have the control rather than the unit to have the control.
Hmm.
Now, when you do like a free ride on these applications like Zwift or Ruby or something like that, I think the fun part is it recognizes the hills,
Yeah.
right? And when you start to know the courses, or you can even set the courses. I know one of the things about Ruby is you can say, I'm going to ride St. George 70.3 course. And when you come to the hill, it gets harder.
Hmm.
When you go downhill, it gets easier, just like it would in the real world. And so that is pretty awesome to have the ability to do that.
No, that's neat, and that is the true smart nature of these trainers. Is then you can simulate, or well, you want to adjust to the course, or you can load a course in there
Yep.
and train for, like you said, for St. George. And now, even though you can't travel to a particular race, you know, St. George obviously is easy to get to, but maybe you're going to New Zealand, or maybe you're going to Austria or somewhere, and now you get an opportunity to actually get a sense for what the course is like.
Yeah. These things are getting so smart too that you can actually do this on a lot of these different applications. I know even Trainer Road and Sufferfest and all of them, basically, as long as you kind of have a little bit of tech savvy, you could pick a course like in New Zealand, and you could actually get the file, the GPX file, and upload it into these different programs. And so you could literally
Hmm.
even if you don't necessarily see the course.
Yeah.
I think Ruby's the only one that could truly see the course.
Hmm.
You can simulate it.
Yeah.
So when it's going to be hard, it's going to be hard. When it's going to be easy, it's going to be easy. And for some people, we're talking about like reducing stress before a race and race recon. If you've ridden that course 15 times already, virtually,
Hmm.
you know what your leg's going to feel like when you get off, especially if, let's say, you did a true race ride where you're like, okay, I'm going to do 85% of my FTP for that 56, if it's a half, right, for that 56 miles, and you get off and you want to go for a run outside, that's what your leg's going to feel like,
Yeah.
right? So there's some big advantages in that, I think, mentally as well as physically.
Well, and that's interesting you bring that up, because one of the questions, I know you and I talked about this early on with training, is, would you feel the same getting off 56 miles after doing a trainer ride versus, riding outdoors? Because obviously, riding outdoors, you have balance issues. Maybe you're paying attention to some different things. and you're not necessarily focused on the bike. So I don't know if you remember, but we had that student, Jared Yoger, did his thesis on that. I
Yep.
think you were a part of that one, were you?
Was, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So before this podcast, I actually went back and looked quickly at his results to refresh my memory, because I'm sad we never actually published it. It was a good paper or a good project. So he actually did how active muscles were riding indoors on a trainer versus riding outdoors. And what he told his subjects to do was ride at the same RPE, rating of perceived exertion. So somewhat hard, hard, very hard. And he just gave those verbal cues indoors and outdoors. And he measured power, because he let the, oh, I forget which trainer we used, but he set it so that the resistance would vary based upon what the person was doing. And we had the power pedals on there. So we measured power, and he measured muscle activity of like the quads and the hamstrings, and had them do it. And interestingly enough, for every RPE, they picked the same power, indoor or outdoor, and muscle activity was pretty much spot on for both indoor and outdoor. A little bit different on the hamstrings. Hamstrings are a funny muscle anyhow, but overall, the muscle activity is pretty similar.
But you know, it's interesting because there is some research coming out on this stuff,
Mhm.
and what they're actually seeing is that the indoor training is actually people are putting out more effort
Mhm.
indoor.
Mhm.
At least higher level athletes are,
Yeah.
and they're attributing it to it. And they're starting to look at it. There's less dead time, right? So I was thinking about this morning, even because I knew we were going to talk about this. I was riding outside, and I really started to pay attention to the amount of times I actually didn't pedal.
Mhm.
Right? Just those little micro breaks.
Yeah.
Right? When you're on a trainer, you don't take those breaks nearly as much.
No.
Like there is a lot more constant or continuous torque
Mm.
that's happening. So where the musculature that with Jared's thesis, which was you're right, was a good study. They didn't look at he didn't consider that piece, right? Because it was a for those people that obviously no one else has read it, but it was a time trial outside versus riding on a trainer. But the time trial was meant to be continuous as well, right? There wasn't a lot of variability. There definitely was no traffic lights,
Mhm.
right? That's another one. I mean, traffic lights out in stop signs and cars merging and pedestrians. There's a
Mhm.
lot of
Yeah,
time when you're not
that's right.
actually pedaling. Whereas on the trainer, I mean, there's nothing stopping you. You could, even on the downhills, you could maintain the same wattage. So, I think that is one of the advantages, but also could be a disadvantage, right?
Mhm.
It's you tend to do more work on a trainer.
Yeah. No, that's right. And I think that's what we were actually going down that path, is trying to figure out how long do you need to train indoors or outdoors for them to be equivalent.
Yeah.
And yeah, because you don't get the breaks, the micro breaks on the trainer. And so then it becomes a bit more efficient. And that's word on the street. How people describe it is that you do an hour ride, it's much more time efficient than doing an hour ride outside. You're go further indoors.
So John, when you commute to work, have you ever looked at your average power?
Oh yeah, yeah.
What is it, just
Oh,
in general?
I don't know. It can go anywhere from 150 to 180, 190.
Yeah. Okay. If I was to prescribe a workout for you of let's say that was 40 minute,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, 40 minutes to come into work. If I was to prescribe a workout for you on your indoor trainer between 150 and 180 watts,
Yeah,
it'd be like, oh, that's nothing,
yeah.
right? Like I'm the same. Like when I go into work, because mine is mostly downhill. Yours is actually a little bit downhill too, I think. To be over 170 watts
Mm-hmm.
because of all the stops and the turns,
Yeah,
and
right.
I've got to kill it. Basically, every chance I have, I've got to go so hard.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love, and don't get me wrong, I love commuting to work on my bike. I
Mm-hmm.
love it. But if I have an hour of commuting to work on my bike versus an hour on the trainer, even an easy ride on the trainer is harder, and I'm going to put in more kilojoules
Yeah.
of work always.
Hmm.
even on my easy ride on the trainer. So I
Yeah.
think there is some advantages to that as far as like bang for the buck, as far as time is concerned. And I think one of the things that we all are as triathletes and age group triathletes is we can be time starved,
Hmm.
right? Even in this lockdown world, I still feel like we're just still always trying to fit things in, and that's one of the advantages of that we have of commuting in on our bikes or commuting home on our bikes is you kind of double dip. But I think there is a piece of the time starved athlete that the trainer can really help with. I mean, John, I'll ask you this: is your trainer set up right now?
Yes.
Okay, if you had to and it was a race, how quick could you get on your trainer and get going?
It's ready to go.
No,
I,
like
I
you
would.
have to. I'm saying you have to change your clothes,
Yeah. Right. Right. No.
put your shoes on,
Mhm.
get a water bottle.
Yep.
5 minutes.
Yep. I'll do a spin down too. We probably need to talk about that. But
The
yeah.
new trainers, you don't have to do that anymore.
Oh, see, I'm still old school. So, but yeah. So really, from having breakfast to saying, "Oh, I'm going to go ride," it's just a few minutes.
Yeah. Whereas if today you wanted to go for a ride at, let's say, 8 in the morning this morning, it was in the 30s,
Hmm.
how long would it take you to get fully ready to go?
Oh, 15, 20, 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So,
This morning was like my first kind of ride out where we decided I was going to go early.
mhm.
And yeah, it took me like 20-25 minutes to find, well, where are those gloves? Where are those arm warmers? Or like all of these pieces. And I'm like, man, I'm burning training time here. Right.
Mhm.
So there's an efficiency to it. And we started this podcast talking about this was a beautiful day.
Yeah, right. I know,
Right.
and I wasn't outside, but I'm using my indoor trainer exactly for that reason, is because when my schedule gets so packed, I need to just use the trainer because I don't have time to even just get ready, get the bike out. Even, I can put in an hour, ride indoors, and versus an hour ride outdoors. I'll get much more out of the indoor
Yeah.
training. But and I have to, watch some video classes, and I can get that done. So I'm very guilty of using my cycle time to do other things at the same time. So real multitasking.
I'm the same as you. It's funny, I'll have my Zwift going, but then I'll be watching something.
Yeah.
Like, you know, there's a lot of good educational stuff out there. Like you said, you're learning all about trailers. I'm learning about um, VLA Max and
Mhm.
crazy training stuff. And, it's pretty cool that we have this ability to double dip,
Yeah.
right? To actually educate yourself or entertain yourself while you're actually training. So let's switch gears a little bit and let's talk about, we're kind of getting down that road already, but the physiologic differences and benefits potentially of indoor training. What do you see as some of the physiologic benefits potentially compared to outdoor training?
Oh, well, I think that's where, going back to the thesis, I mean, you can get the same physiological training indoors or outdoors uh, with cycling for sure. Running can be a little bit different,
Yep.
uh, but for cycling, because it's such a mechanical resistance, uh, you can set that up. But you also need to, I think, be very aware in terms of what you are doing, very deliberate, because it is easy to go easy if you want to on a trainer or outdoors. Either way, I mean,
Either way.
you still need to have a plan either way. Now, going back to rollers are quite different. I think rollers. If people don't know what rollers are your bike is on your rear wheel is on two drums and your front wheel is on one drum, and they all spin freely. Well, the front and the back are connected so that one spins, so the back spins the front. But you're in essence on a platform that's maybe about this wide, foot and a half, and you can fall, and your bike's not fixed. And the problem, well, one of the issues with a roller is there's very little resistance, but it's a great way to actually work on balance and work on that skill of biking. Now, in that case, your physiological demand is quite low. But the training benefit that you can have in terms of learning better balance on the bike is actually quite high, and maybe even better than biking outdoors. Because a lot of times we don't really pay attention to the balance of the bike.
Yeah, no, those are all awesome things. So actually, the one other thing I want to get into more of the physiology, but the one other real big benefit is there's no cars.
Yeah.
You're not going to get into an accident. You know, Lionel Sanders is pretty famous for training indoors almost exclusively. And when every interview you ever hear where they ask the question, he's like, well, the reason I did is I think he got hit 3 times in a year. And he's just like, I can't risk it anymore.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we are always as cyclists and triathletes fighting this battle of being safe. And you're definitely way safer in your house than you are out in the world. I do want to mention, because this is some really newer stuff, is that pro cyclists and professional triathletes and high level, not just saying high level age groupers, are starting to use the indoor training to kind of mess around with their core temperature as they're exercising. So the one thing that will happen if you don't have proper fans, even if you do have proper fans, is core temperature will increase greater in the indoor. Now, obviously, in Las Vegas, we have this ability in the summer that we can get core temperature nice and high. And this is a really interesting topic because, you know, as an athletic trainer, I'm often really aware of, and I have to teach this, about like heat stroke, heat exhaustion, and you know, the downside of those things. But we're seeing that heat stress and heat stress training, if it's done properly, there's some really big benefits to this. So some of the recent information that's come across my desk has been increases in VO2, increases in the utilization of different substrates, and then probably the biggest thing is increase in blood plasma volume. And if you can figure out how to do this where you're kind of in this, you know, before you get to heat exhaustion, but you're elevated, and you were talking about potentially like 101 degrees, 100 to 101, maybe up to 102 degrees, and you do a substantial amount of work at that, you will see benefits. And you know, some of the, for example, the professional athletes are going to training camps at altitude, and then they're riding on their trainers.
Yeah.
Right. It's not that they're out doing all these mountain roads. It's like they're doing a substantial amount on the trainer, and the benefits they're seeing, in particular in blood plasma volume, are, you know, they're attributing number one to altitude, but then they're stimulating altitude and they're having heat. You know, that's one thing we're seeing, and the benefits are being seen not just in hot races. They're actually seeing the benefits in the cold races too, by that increased blood plasma volume and the stimulation of increased VO2 max, this is a pretty new area, and you know, it's an area that's ripe for good research to happen. You know, we've known about it for years of doing heat adaptation, and in particular, you know, people going to Kona, right? October, you've been there. October in Kona, it's not pleasant, and even coming from Vegas, it's not easy, right, at that time of year to stay heat acclimatized.
No, especially that time of year, because it is cooling off, and now you're not getting the heat, nor do we have the humidity. So Vegas is not a great place to do a prep for Kona.
But if you were on your trainer indoors without a fan, you would be just fine. Right?
Yeah, with some plastic tarps up around you, and
you can
a humidifier inside it. And,
you can create your own environment, right? And so, you know, you were mentioning the early season races back in the day, and how these people were getting fit. Well, one of the issues might have been in the Southwest is they were getting hotter too.
Yeah.
Right. And so, you know, this is an area of research that is becoming, like I said, more, I guess, built up. The other issue is, and there's some stuff on this in the literature as well, is looking at managing dehydration properly as well.
Mhm.
So actually purposely dehydrating.
Mhm.
And on the trainer indoors, you can dehydrate pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Right? But doing it in a way that creates the physiologic response. It's not about getting dehydrated to limit your performance. It's actually getting dehydrated so the response
Right.
of your body to maintain homeostasis is increased blood plasma volume.
Mhm.
And I think that this is once again, this is an area that the people in the know and elite athletes and elite coaches, they're utilizing indoor training specifically for this. And personally, I'm excited about it. And I've done some of the prep work that I've done for my races when I raced in Miami the last couple of years in November. I did it. I mean, I was training indoors with like one small fan
Mhm.
and losing some significant body weight. The one other thing I was going to add here is this is also a really good opportunity for you to measure your sweat rate,
Mhm.
right? Is, do your hour with, like, say, one small fan, weigh in, weigh out afterwards, and you can get a pretty good indication of in an hour what your sweat rate is. And then that really can help you. And we talked about that before, as far as, when you're racing, how much you need to actually bring back into the system.
No, that's a great point. And yeah, it's funny, we toss around hydration strategies and all this, but that's all predicated on knowing your sweat rate. And if you don't know your sweat rate, you're just guessing.
Yeah.
And even though your sweat rate is influenced by lots of different things, doing it on a trainer, even this time of year, at least you get, some data to even have a sense for how much you sweat, even in this environment.
Well, especially if you can control your wattage, right?
Yeah.
So you can control your temperature in your house. Let's say, your house is, I don't know, this time of year, maybe 72
But,
degrees.
but that's what I was going to ask you. I was going to say,
Yep.
where is your trainer?
My trainer is in my house.
Yeah.
It's like literally, it's sitting like I could touch it.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to have to change. I've got mine in the garage, and I go out in the morning. I got to put a hat on, and I got a
Yeah.
long shirt, and it's
But I
cold.
still,
I'm
but
doing it all wrong.
I still bet when you're working hard, you're still sweating a lot
Yeah.
once you get going.
Yeah.
So no, I think that's like, if you set let's say it's in the house and it's 70 degrees and you're going to do 200 watts average power for an hour, you could get a good sweat rate.
Yeah.
Like, especially, like I said, if you don't have a fan on you, it'll be a really good indicator of what your sweat rate is. And remember, even with if fan on or fan off, you're going to sweat the same.
Yeah.
Right? You just will evaporate more or less. And I just think it could be a valuable tool for determining that. And I think a lot of athletes want to know, at least athletes in the know, want to know what their sweat rate is.
No, that's great. And I love this. And I love the science on the idea of raising core temp and
Yep.
getting a training response. So, and doing this on an indoor trainer, it makes a lot more sense than trying to do it outdoors. But now you're talking sweat rate. Maybe we need to talk a little bit about how you set up your bike so you don't destroy your bike after a season.
Okay. So I'm going to give you a little hint. So one of the things that they say you should do is get yourself a trainer bike.
Mm-hmm.
I built one up this year and I still don't use it.
Oh, really?
Because it's just not the same. Like, I love being on my time trial bike, and like, because I built up one that's a road bike,
Yeah.
and I just did it with used parts and bought pieces off of eBay, bought a frame, and built this bike up. I probably built it up for less than $400 all in, with like used parts and stuff like that. And I put it on the trainer, and I'm like, oh, it's just not the same as my time trial bike, right? And so the one of the things I would suggest you do is not what I do. So do what I say, not what I do, is like to get an old bike, preferably an aluminum frame or steel frame, to use on your trainer.
Mhm.
And then you don't have to worry about, destroying your, race bike, because you're right. Like, there are, to protect it, like, I do keep towels like on the handlebars and any of the bolts, and because you're right, like you can do a lot of damage to a bike, mostly because of the sweating.
No. Yeah, I have my original time trial bike on my trainer, but my time trial bike, my Diamond, I don't put on the trainer. But for a secondary reason, it's because my Diamond has disc brakes, and so I've got a through axle. Now I do have an adapter. I just have not. I've not used it yet. Now some frames. Well, you might know this more accurately than I. Some frames have had situations where they will void the warranty if you use the frame on a trainer.
But supposedly, anything in the last 3 or 4 years, that's not the case anymore.
Okay.
Because the manufacturers have realized that if they sold a bike that would be voided if someone put it on a trainer,
Yep.
they wouldn't sell it because so
Yep.
many people are riding. So many people are riding indoors. But you're right, that historically has been a problem. And some of the carbon layout, from my understanding, early on, was not built up robustly enough in the to basically handle the stresses
Yeah.
of the trainers. And the other thing I will tell you is, in general, triathletes are not putting out 1,000 watts,
Mm-hmm.
right?
That's
So
open gate. That's a all out
yeah,
30-second.
and so what I've read is some of the people that have broke their bikes,
Mm-hmm.
it's on a sprint where it's like 1,000 watts, 1,200 watts.
Yeah. Oh,
Um,
that's an insane amount of wattage.
it's
So,
an insane amount, and the stress on the frame at that point is quite significant. If you're just rolling along at 200 watts or 250 watts,
yeah.
you're not going to break you're probably, I don't want to say you're probably not going to do any damage to your frame if it's set up properly. But yeah, I think that's been put to bed a little bit.
Okay, that's good. So
You definitely want to protect your bike from the sweat.
I had a feeling you were going to correct me on that. So that was because
Yeah.
I haven't really followed it that much, but that's good to know. Now, the other thing, you mentioned direct versus indirect drive. The direct drive being where you take your rear wheel off.
Yep.
I like that. And I would always get upset with my wife because she had a trainer friction drive where the wheel stays on. And now you run your good tire down. And
Yeah,
so,
quickly.
yeah, you do. And so they do make special tires for
Yep.
indoor trainers if you keep your rear wheel on when you use your trainer.
Yeah.
Now you use a direct drive though, right?
I use a direct drive as well. But yeah, before this, I had a smart trainer that was wheel on, and I can tell you, like, it's amazing, like especially on a nice tire, like a race tire, it burns through them because there's a lot of friction and there's a lot of heat.
Oh.
And so yeah, I would definitely suggest that if you're going to do that, get yourself a trainer tire, or at least maybe old race tires or something old that you don't really care about, for sure.
And then if you do have disc brakes, you do need it's different type of axle than a caliper brake. So make sure that your trainer and your bike.
Yeah, and then all of the brands now, they're coming with adapters, so you could do either the through axle or the older skewer.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Let's see, what have we not covered? There was something else that was popping in my mind and I didn't write it down, and now I'm drawing a blank. But I did want to get to some of the features of indoor riding, and you talk about being on a team and racing. So you want to talk a little bit about the interface that
Sure,
that allows you to race?
Yeah, so the interface that I'm racing on Zwift. I'm in the World Zwift Racing League. It's pretty cool because right now it's teams of 6, and we communicate just like e-gaming. We're on Discord, and we talk through as we're racing, which is pretty fun. I'm talking to these guys I've actually never met before. We just kind of hooked up through Facebook, and we talk strategy. We talk when we do our races. It's honestly it's pretty dang fun to have a group of people that you're trying to race with. There's multiple races, there's multiple leagues there. You can at any point, literally on Zwift, you could get onto a race. Like if right now I wanted to race, I probably could choose from 6 or 7 different races in the next hour. Different lengths. They have time trials. The cool thing right now is the team time trial. So there's leagues of team time trials, which I think is super, super fun. It's, that's where you really have to talk with each other and, figure out where you are in the order and how hard you're going to go off of the front and not dropping each other. And so there's those. I did this summer, I did a USA Cycling race league, which was week to week, and it was all individual races. There was some time trials, there was some hill climbs, just a complete variety of races. And I think the thing that's cool about it is you're racing people from all over the world. It's live all over the world. You can talk, not always on Discord, but you can talk via chat basically to people. You can talk a little trash if you want.
Mhm.
But the thing that ultimately happened to me is I was in the USA Cycling League. We're seeing the same people every week. Everyone would show up. This was a Wednesday at 6:00 at night. So it would always be the same group of people. And you start to learn, okay, well, this guy, he's a good climber. I got to stay tight on him here, and eventually it's funny. I started following each other on Strava, and now I'm actually friends with a few of these guys that we raced against this summer. And now, so now you become Strava friends, and you can, hey, good, nice ride today. And the one guy's down in Southern California, and I've told him, say, next time I'm down there, I'm gonna look you up and we'll go for a bike ride together. That's pretty cool stuff, right? Where these leagues and these things can actually build into some to a friendship.
Yep.
Especially if you look at it like that. I don't look at the people I'm racing against as enemies. They're just other people trying to do the same thing I'm doing, right? And there's a lot of downside to the racing. There's a lot of ugliness as far as people weight doping and basically saying they're lighter than they are so they can go faster. And I don't fall into any of that stuff. I just go and do my thing. It's about me. But the other thing that's I think is really awesome is it's all handicapped as well. So there's different divisions. There's A's through D's, and it's all based off of your watts per kilogram that you put out. And so you get to kind of seated in the right spot. And that's pretty fun to do like that. I think one day what we'll do is we should do I'll capture some of the video, and we'll do maybe a tutorial on Zwift racing, which would be kind of fun.
That'd be great, because it can be intimidating. And I've used Zwift in the past, but I mostly just jump on and join a ride, not join a ride. I select a course, and then I ride it. But I never took advantage of any of the other features that the program offers.
Well, and I think we talked about it before, but for me, the racing in particular, that's my one hard session a week. So for example, this week we had a team time trial, and it was 40 minutes. And there ended up only being 4 of us instead of 6. So we had to work really hard. Well, in that 40 minutes, I'm on the front, probably just over 10 minutes of it. And I go on the front for about 40 seconds. And it's 40 seconds of all out way above threshold. My threshold is about 280. And I'm trying to hold 400 watts for those 40 seconds. Right. And then I recover, and I get 3 minutes or so recovery till my next time. Well, that's the best VO2 session I'm ever going to get. It would be so hard for me to go out and just do that on my own. But you get a team, right? We're trying to win, and we're trying to, we're trying to accomplish something. And for me, that's my once a week of absolute hit out on the bike. And the rest of the week, I do maybe one tempo ride, and the rest is just long, slow, zone 1, zone 2 stuff. And I don't know. For me, it's good to do that. And the other thing is, I can go all in, right? I can go all in. In worst case scenario, I collapse on my bike. I'm not going to crash.
Yeah.
Right. It's really hard out on the road to get all in, where you're literally you get the tunnel vision, and it's hard because you're afraid that you're gonna fall off your bike.
No, that's true. And you can set up all your nutrition.
Yep.
within arm's reach, so you never have to reload as you go along. Okay, but now the big question:
Yep.
what do you wear?
Nothing. Honestly, as little as possible.
Yeah,
I wear cycling shorts
yeah.
and that's it.
Ah,
No top.
interesting.
Heart rate monitor across the chest.
Yeah.
Most of the leagues you have to wear a heart rate monitor or your
Okay.
race doesn't count.
Okay.
Um, yeah, I literally wear as little as possible because you overheat. Like
Mm-hmm.
we're talking about heat for heat for training adaptation. When you're racing, you want to be as cool as possible.
Yeah. Right.
Like you almost want to be like cold. You know,
Mm-hmm.
your skin. Like when I finish racing, my skin is cold.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So as little as possible. They make it's pretty cool. We didn't talk about this. They make indoor cycling gear now.
Mm-hmm.
The one company you may know of them, No Pins.
Hmm.
They're out of England. They make it. Lacall makes indoor cycling. No Pins. I mentioned that because they're making a cycling kit, an indoor cycling kit, with pockets that you put ice gel packs in.
Oh wow.
So like ice
Interesting.
gel packs in your chest and your back and your legs.
Oh.
So to help mitigate core temperature
Mm-hmm.
increases.
Interesting.
But
But
so that
I
would be
think,
for racing.
yeah, I think it's a great message, is because I think people may think to not wear their good gear on the trainer, but
That's a big
why,
mistake.
make it as comfortable as possible. If you
Yeah.
got a good pair of shorts, wear a good pair of shorts.
Oh,
So,
I think actually it's more important to wear good shorts
yeah,
indoors than out. And the reason is because you stick in the same position way more.
right.
I'll get more training saddle sores for
Yep.
sure on an indoor session than I ever would in an outdoor session.
Yep.
To the point where I got to remind myself to stand up and move.
Mm-hmm.
And if I don't, then
Yep.
yeah, it's a problem. Yeah, definitely wear your good stuff indoors. And honestly, good cycling gear, as long as you wash it after,
Yep.
it'll last forever. You
Last.
just
Yep.
don't put it in the dryer.
Oh, there you go. All right.
Yeah.
So now you're talking position,
Yep.
time trial, or
When I race, I don't do time trial position because I can't put out as many watts. Sorry, I don't know if that went through, but yeah. So I don't race in the time trial position because I can't put out as many watts.
okay.
Right. But when I train, there'll be definitely days where I'll just, I will force myself
Mm-hmm.
an hour, hour and a half
Yeah.
just to hold that position. And a lot of those days, I don't try and do big watts,
Right.
just zone one, because the position is important, right? We've talked about this already a little bit, but coming up, for example, to an Ironman, holding 5 hours
Yeah.
in a time trial position,
Mm-hmm.
it's not easy.
No,
And
it's not.
it is something that you could do on a trainer. You could literally hold 5 hours if you really wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
But even out on the road, it's hard to find places where you can just hold that time trial position for that amount of time. But it takes it takes mental adaptation as well, right? Just be sitting there in that time trial position for that amount of time, because it's not the most comfortable position.
Mm-hmm.
I think we'd all agree it's the fastest position, but it's something that you have to build into. So, I would say like right now that I don't have any races on the schedule till May. Probably do less in the time trial position,
Mm-hmm.
but I still try and at least once a week get a good like 1 hour, 1.5 hours in the time trial position.
That's good. And I'll mess around. I'm mostly on the horns more so than in time trial, especially right now. But one advantage of being on a trainer is I can roll up my towel and I can put it on my armrests, and I can
Exactly.
raise myself up that way too. So I don't feel, it's a workout to be in an aggressive time trial position. I can still be in my armrests, but at a little bit higher, really easy to manipulate that.
Yeah, and you can put like different blocks under your front wheel as well.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah.
and then we didn't talk about it, but like Wahoo makes a climb thing where
Yeah.
you can attach your bike to a pneumatic thing that raises your front wheel up and back. I don't have that, but supposedly people love it, and,
Mhm.
and it by changing the position a little bit, it does obviously simulate to being outside, but I think if you raised yourself up a little bit more, especially it might be a little bit more comfortable. I don't know.
Well, I'll tell you, we had a student ready to do that
Mhm.
project, and unfortunately we didn't get that done, but that would have been really neat to look at muscle activity at, outdoor riding uphill versus on a simulated uphill. All right, so I think it's time to pull this together, this evidence-based triathlete on indoor training. I'm just going to read off a few bullet points I wrote down
Okay.
while we were talking. We talked about resistance inside versus outside, and you can get the same resistance. Training time, you can be very efficient inside because you don't have those breaks, those micro breaks that we would see, or macro breaks, who knows, that we would have outside. Training response, you talked about the evidence related to raising core temperature and trying to control your environment, your air temperature. You can elicit a higher core temp and some stronger training responses. And then a really important part that you talked about was the ability to easily determine sweat rate. And I think that's a really neat part. And then we talked about a whole bunch of other things related to indoor riding, from clothing and position. So this has been good.
It was a good, yeah, it was a good talk tonight. I got something out of it. I hope you did too, and hopefully our audience did. It was a good talk tonight.
Yeah. Well, good stuff. All right.
Yeah, awesome. Have a good week of trailer.
Yeah. I will be working on my trailer this weekend. I am going to get my indoor training though. I'll be on my trainer and watching some how-to videos.
Yep. I got to get you on Zwift Racing. I'm telling you, I actually think you'd really enjoy a weekly hit out, kind of like your old 5K weekly races.
I will do that. We'll do that either later in December or definitely in January at that point, because I would like to try it just to get a sense for what that's like, and I think that'll be fun because we just have not raced enough.
That's the other thing where I really got into is like I wasn't getting that the adrenaline of racing.
Yeah, it's amazing how we really missed that. But we've got some races this weekend to watch, so that'll be fun.
Yeah, should be good. Watch the PTO this weekend.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Be good. All right, cool. Thanks, John.
Hey, all right, good talking, Ted.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.